Alright, so finishing up on Chapter 6, hey, we want to figure out what is the required return for this Blandy investment. So we're given the risk-free required rate, we're given the market rate, we're also giving the risk market rate, the risk premium, and then we're also we're going to estimate the beta, which we did previously on the previous slide. With that entail, we're able to come in here and plug in these numbers into our formula and quickly say, hey, our required rate of return for this investment is 7%. And we'll see how this plays out in a couple slides. So here, the other thing we can see is we can say, okay, what is the risk for these different stocks? We can compare them side by side. And we can say the standard average company has a risk of around 9%. And then for each of our two different investments that we've been talking about, we can see their different risk associated with each one of them. So if we want to calculate the portfolio beta, we're going to take the weight times the beta, for each one of our investments. So real simply, we have 70% of our portfolio is in Blandy and 30% is in the other. I'll try to pronounce it again for you again. But we can see that the portfolio beta is 0.81. Alright, so we say, hey, what's the required rate of return for the portfolio? We're going to simply take the weight times the risk for each one of the pieces of the puzzle. So you could have 2 investments in a portfolio, you could have 15 in a portfolio, and figure out the required rate of return for the portfolio very simply. So 70% is in this investment, 30% in this other investment. Comes up with an 8.05 for the required rate of return. So the last slide in Chapter 6, I'm going to sort of bring it all together. So these are 2 different portfolio managers. They've got different investments within their portfolios. And we can see after they've performed, or the analyst has performed these different calculations for their portfolio. We say, okay, their beta is 0.7 for this portfolio and 1.4 for the other. We see the risk-free rate is the same, the market risk premium is the same, but each of their portfolios have a different required rate of return. Right, so we knew that going into the year. Then what we've seen as the year actually progressed, the actual return for JJ was 8.5. For the other one, it was 9.5. Initially, we may say, oh, well, CC he outperformed JJ. But in reality, JJ actually overperformed versus what we estimated. And any time you have a stock market and an overperformance versus an estimate, that's going to drive higher prices. So this portfolio is going to be valued higher at the end of the year because it outperformed expectations. But just wanted to bring it all together. You've seen a ton of calculations. You've seen how to do them. The main thing to remember, and you'll see this in a lot of the text and the slides that will follow that you'll read through, is they're great for analysis between different investments, between different portfolios. It gives you a way to benchmark how you're doing versus the market, versus other portfolios, so forth and so on. So it's great for comparison. It's great for risk analysis as you're deciding what to invest in. So a lot of uses with each of these calculations. I know there's a ton of calculations and a lot of funky numbers and funky formulas, but the majority of them can be calculated using simple functions within Excel, and then you take some of those calculations that you figured out in Excel and plug them into some formulas, but those typically are pretty simple. So definitely work that can be done and can be very useful for either a professional investor or someone that might be doing individual investments. So hopefully this is useful and interesting information. All right, we'll see you with Chapter 7 shortly.